Hello, Seeker. Today I'm going to answer another question that I've received recently. Can Valkyries be male? Well, according to the lore and the records that we have, the extant texts, there are no male Valkyries. But when we look beyond that, when we explore beyond the texts in more modern directions, and we look at sort of established cross-cultural theories in regards to paganism, we begin to see that there are ways you can end up with a male Valkyrie. It's not exactly what you might think, in terms of like the idea of the shield maiden of Odin suddenly, translated as a male version, and I don't know, in plate armor or in a chainmail bikini or whatever you wish, but rather through reincarnation. I know reincarnation is a tricky subject in heathenry. The most die-hard Reconstructionist circles will tell you that either it isn't possible or that the references are scant and it's only within the bloodline. Others have loosened that a little bit and said, no, it's within the family line, so adopted kin are fine, extended family are fine, as long as there's some form of legally binding relationship while you're still in the same family and reincarnation can occur. I tend to think that we just don't have enough information about Germanic people and culture predating the 8th century. I think that there's the potential for there having been a lot more open beliefs in regards to reincarnation before the Viking Age. I wouldn't be surprised if the beliefs going further back were similar to what we see in sort of the poster child for reincarnation theory type stuff, which is India. There's plenty of big, author, Asatru writers, like Thorson, for example, or Macnallan, or I think Updike is another one. They all kind of go in the direction of Vedic ideas being a sharing a common root with Germanic ideas, so that they may actually come from a common root in regards to reincarnation in such a way that there may have been an echo or mirror of what we consider Vedic reincarnation, Hindu reincarnation within heathenry, pre-Christian Germanic paganism, as it were. I know there are other writers on the more Vanic side, as opposed to like the more like warrior raw Brosatru side, who also see connections there and say that most likely there was a type of reincarnation, or they say that they've had personal experiences with it. I fall into that camp. I have personal experiences with past lives that probably weren't my family. I don't know whether or not they were on my bloodline or not for sure, but definitely strong memories. And that's where myself and there's probably a dozen people now I've met who have a similar feeling. They were born male, inner identity, many past life memories being woman, a strong sense of being a Valkyrie, but being born male in this life, and being dedicated to Freya, for example, later finding their way to Odin, especially after researching Odin and how a lot of the sort of ignored facts that point to how he practiced Thaler, likely dressed as a woman, in sort of a traditional Arctic Circle or Proto-Indo-European or Indo-European shamanic sense. I've got an article in the works on spiritual cross-dressing. I'm going to skip over that for now, but you'll be able to find that on my Patreon probably about the same time that I launched this video, or slightly thereafter. Anyway, can Valkyries be male? Well, if you're like me and you have strong memories and a strong impulse and a strong feminine self-identity, to where if you had just been born female, no one would have an issue with you calling yourself a Valkyrie, then yes, men can be Valkyries. Now, am I gonna run around in, a very sort of modern geek boys fantasy chainmail bikini? Thankfully, no. No, I'm not even going to think about that. Instead, it's rather an identity. It's an internal thing. It's what you see when you close your eyes and you go into the cloth and you journey. When you look at yourself and your own self-identity and how you carry yourself within the world and your relationship to spirit and the world around you. It's the Valkyrie mindset. It's being a Valkyrie. And I know that there are people watching this video who are going to think, they're going to hear that and they're going to think it's totally ludicrous, because here they are looking at someone who's very male, very masculine. And yet I'm saying, hi, I'm a woman inside. And who knows? I'm sure there are plenty of people who will appreciate that, the candor of it, the honesty of it. It's something that I hid for 30 years of my life. And most people who come out as transgender end up hiding it for decades. Because, especially men who feel like women inside. Because a woman because there's like I wrote an article about this a while ago. There is a horrible societal sort of piece of programming, a shackle, if you will, that holds us down as a society, where we unconsciously see women as weak and men as strong, which is why dykes, if that's the wrong word to use for you, please excuse it. I know plenty of people who like being called that. Butch women, we'll say. That's more of a neutral term. It's okay for women to be butch, because according to this bit of programming, they're raising themselves out of weakness, out of femininity, into masculinity. But when a man who is already, in this upper position chooses to become effeminate in some way or another, chooses to admit femininity within himself, chooses to embrace femininity in some way, God forbid, chooses to cross-dress, suddenly that person is lowering themselves to a weaker level. It's self-emasculation. I think it's utter bullshit, but I also recognize it in the societal framework of, maybe I don't know if it goes very much beyond America, or if it's not as bad in America, or if, it's real light in California as compared to I'm sure it's compared to other places in the world. So there are plenty of places in the world where it's a lot more intense. But, that's why, one of the main reasons why I am this way, why I was very quiet about my transgender, feelings and nature and whatnot for a long time. It was only when people started coming out that I felt comfortable coming out myself. And after I came out, a lot of other people felt comfortable coming out, because they saw somebody who was brave enough to say, you know what, fuck it, I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm going to be true to myself and to others. And of course, there are those out there who go, oh, it's an epidemic. Everybody thinks they're trans. They don't want to be special. No, it's just that there have always been this many people. There always have been this many people. I had arguments with my parents when I was 3 or 4 years old. Some of my earliest memories about whether or not I was a boy or a girl. I had arguments with them about that. And they were like, ha ha, look, you have a wiener. You're a boy, obviously. It's not that hard. Come on, be smart. Most people, if not all people, who come out as transgender have experiences like that, which means 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. there was still just as many transgender people. They either didn't know how to express it, they kept it inside because they were scared, you know, or they felt like the world was too dangerous to admit it. Thankfully, we live in a time when it's a lot, at least in California, it's a lot safer to admit who you are and how you feel inside, thankfully. So, I guess back to the core question. Can a Valkyrie be a male? Well, you're looking at one. But, according to historical sources, according to Eddas, sagas, Tacitus, Ibn Fetlan, well, Ibn Fetlan doesn't talk about Valkyries, neither does Tacitus. Regardless, historical sources that mention Valkyries, there's no male Valkyries. There's no stories about men reincarnating and going, oh man, I was a woman in a past life. I don't know. No one knows if the church has destroyed any records there might have been along those lines. They destroyed a lot of data. There's a lot that was lost. We'll never know, probably. Unless, we invent a time machine or dig up some book somewhere that's got, the magic secrets in it or whatever. We'll never know whether or not there were men who claimed to have been Valkyries before. We do know that spiritual cross-dressing happened in a Germanic context, in a shamanic context. And we do know that there were Vanic priests who cross-dressed. And we do know that Proto-Indo-European and Indo-European exposed culture commonly have traditions of shamanic cross-dressing, including as far east as the Babaylan in the Philippines, which, the areas where you find the Babaylan are the areas that were exposed to Indo-European or Proto-Indo-European waves, migration waves. That's just a cultural relic that's hung on for a long time. It's been around a long time. So I suppose in closing, I'll say that if you feel compelled to cross-dress for a spiritual purpose, there is nothing wrong with that. Don't let anyone tell you there's anything wrong with that. Likewise, if you don't want to, if it's not part of your identity, then don't do it. Just be acceptant of it. Be acceptant that gender is a fluid concept. It's not always as simple as just I am always male and always have been male, and I am always female and have always been female. It's not that simple. I write a lot of articles and do a lot of videos on heathen subjects. If you'd like to read more or see more, you can go to my Patreon, which has sort of become my repository for all of the free stuff that I do and, some of the paid stuff that I do for patrons. My Patreon is going to be in the description below. It's also www.patreon.com/ESWin. You can also find more about me and my studies in Old European wolf shamanism and mystic heathenry on my main website, my main author blog. I'm the author of 71 books in print. My main author blog is www.eswin.com. Hope you have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are. And I hope that this video has either opened you up a little bit in a positive way or has helped you feel empowered and safe. Thank you.